We need to evacuate the area. There's gas leaking.
High winds could fuel the flames of the now 22 wildfires still raging out of control in California.
Those are propane tanks venting and exploding all around here. The smoke's it's getting really dark here. The fire's spreading down the street.
Yeah, the McDonald's. I think there was an Arby's over here too.
Howdy there, Murdoch here, and we're back in this video with, I guess, kind of a question, but also, I guess, sort of show and tell to a degree. In Northern California, where I live, there's been a lot of devastating fires, and literally 100,000 people were displaced. People were killed. Over, I think somewhere in the vicinity of 6,000 homes, over 9,000 structures. That includes businesses and stuff. So really devastating. Mostly all this happened north of where I live, Sonoma, Napa, and around the area. But it kind of gets you thinking, what do you do in this sort of time where this sort of devastation happens, and you're going to lose your home, which is horrible for everyone who had to go through that. And even south of where all this was happening, I live about 30 or 40 miles south of where most of the destruction took place, more or less. But it's really, all things considered, not all that far away from where I live. So you start thinking about if you had to go, if you had to leave your home, what do you take with you? So myself and Daisy, my wife, we talked about this a little bit. And, we built a fire kit just in case, just stuff that we could just take if we had to go, in terms of important papers and documents, marriage license, all that kind of stuff, like the deed to the house, all that. And other irreplaceable things like, photos and stuff like that. Although mostly at this point, all my photos are, digital. Kind of barring that sort of thing, what do you take? What we did was this almost as sort of an exercise. We each filled up a box of stuff. So what I'm going to be showing you here is just a little box of stuff, the very first things I would think to grab in the case of a fire. Mostly I think things that are sentimental, things that aren't really totally replaceable. So the size of the box, on screen that probably looks like a relatively big box, but this is not very big. It's probably, let's see, I don't know, if I had to guess, maybe 18 inches by 12 inches by 7 inches tall, more or less. So I'm going to be showing you what I thought to take in the case of a fire if we had to evacuate or whatever, because you never know. Life's crazy. In the case of a fire, it can happen anytime, any place. And I think one thing that was extra scary and devastating about the Northern California fires, as we saw, this wasn't just in wooded areas. You'd see shots of whole housing developments that were leveled by the fires, and it's super scary. So I want to show you what I have in this box, and I'm curious as to what you would take in the event of a fire or a flood. This year has been really kind of devastating when it's come to natural disasters. If you look at Florida and Texas, the fires here. What do you take when you don't really have a whole lot of time to really think about it? You don't have the ability to grab everything you'd like to grab, so things are gonna have to get left behind. And so beyond pictures, at least photo albums and really important documents, what do you grab? So the first thing I have here is an American flag. I've always been told, or I was told at a very young age, was my grandfather's burial flag, I suppose, on my mother's side. I think that was more of a family legend. I kind of don't think that this is actually his or was his. But if nothing else, it represents that and represents him. This is one of those things I've just always had with me, and it's always been a very sentimental item. Even if now, maybe it's not actually the case, maybe it wasn't, it still represents that to me. So that's one of the first things I thought about. Next up, I have something that's a little bit less sentimental in terms of a family sort of thing, but it's still very sentimental to me. A personalized letter, signed and inscribed book from Chuck Palahniuk, one of my very favorite writers of all time. Chuck, of course, is the writer of Fight Club. It's his most notable thing. Super sweet from Chuck Palahniuk, one of my very favorites, so that made it into my box of stuff to save. Next up, I have my sketchbook. I work in a comic book shop, which entails, often meeting a lot of artists, going to conventions and stuff like that. So this is my sketchbook from all my time kind of in the business or whatever. And this sketchbook is filled with tons of sketches, mostly from, successful working comic artists. Some are from friends and things like that. So this is a really important item to me as well. Definitely something that I would have to grab in the event of leaving my house for a fire or something along those lines. Next up, something that's also very sentimental, is a journal that I was given. I've never actually written in this, but it was from one of my very favorite teachers in high school, Mrs. Bonneville. It's got a nice little letter to me in there. Not going to be able to see that really, but I've always cherished this item, so much so that I've never been able to bring myself to write in it. I loved her as a teacher, so one of the first things I think of. So from my grandfather on my father's side, I have several different items here. Let me just show you a picture of him. It's not going to really be able to focus. He's got a Beanie Baby on his head. There you go. There's a picture of him. He's got a little Beanie Baby on his head, and to go along with that, this Beanie Baby here, it's a moose. He passed away several years ago now. But yeah, so the Beanie Baby along with that photo of him. He was a very serious guy most of the time. I know, especially when he was younger, even probably up through, I don't know, he's probably his 50s. But later in life, he was a really fun guy, really special. Meant a lot to me. So the Beanie Baby in the picture, of course, represent that. But I have a couple other items that were from him, one of which was actually a photo when he was much younger. Not sure when this was taken, but I think it's like a college photo. And then this buck knife. That's why I always refer to my grandpa knife, even in all my other videos, it was from him. Not really that big of a deal on its own. It wasn't personally handed to me, but I know it was his. So, grandpa knife. And then I got this baseball that was signed by Denny McLain. Well, in terms of his pitching success, mostly known as the last 30-game winner in Major League history, which is pretty impressive on its own. He has had some legal problems, I think, in the meantime, but in terms of his success, that's, I think, his big claim to fame. It wasn't, once again, gifted to me personally, but in my family, I'm pretty much the last remaining baseball fan, I think. He was a Tigers fan. I just wanted to have this. This was kind of from my grandmother's estate when she passed away. This was one of the things that were left over. And like I said, I'm pretty much the last remaining baseball fan of the family. So, it meant a lot to me to have this. So, my aunts and uncles let me have it. So, it's pretty cool. This one, in some respects, is maybe a silly choice, but it is very sentimental to me. And it's a gift from the kid. It's a belt buckle. This was the first gift she gave me when she was hired on at the shop, and she's given me several nice gifts, usually way too generous. The controller is another one, but this was the first thing I thought of was the belt buckle. It's the Intercontinental Championship title from WWF/WWE. And it's just a belt buckle, but I really like it, and it is very sentimental to me now. So. There you go. This is a Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 1 graphic novel. On its own, not a big deal, but of course it's sentimental because this was a gift from Aaron. This was the comic that altered his life. Because a couple years ago, or whenever I gave him a copy of the Iron Man comic that changed my life. It wasn't the original one, but I just gave him a copy of it, which was still meant to be, symbolically very important. But he gave me his actual, origin story comic, in this case, graphic novel. But yeah, this is from Aaron. Very sentimental. It was way too nice of a thing to give me, quite frankly. But love you, man. I really appreciate this. So that definitely made it into my box of things that I had to snag in the case of a fire or whatever. And a silly one to end it on. I have my Super NES copy of Biker Mice from Mars. I love this game so much, and I really wanted to save this one because it has all of the different tags from different establishments on it. It's like a Save Mart sticker on the back. There's the GameStop / I think it was an EB technically when I bought it. sticker there. There's an Eastman Video, there's a Hollywood Video sticker on here. And it's just one of those things that it's not totally replaceable. And I really love this game. So kind of a silly one to end on, I know. But that'll pretty much cover everything I have in that box. So what would you save if you could just save one box of stuff? I'm kind of forgoing things like my ring from Daisy. You know, it's my wedding band. I pretty much have it on all the time. And, you know, things like photos and stuff. Like, I have tons of photos with her that are super significant that she already has saved in a box and or are digital or, you know, something along those lines. Things like her father's guitar, that's an autosave, you know, things like that. But, you know, if you had a box of items that are, you know, primarily probably sentimental, what do you save in the event of like a fire or flood or some other catastrophe? That's pretty much going to do it for this video. The only other little thing I'm going to add here is down below, I'm going to leave the link to a place where you can donate. It's for the Bay Area Unite Fund. Essentially, all the funds just go to the Red Cross. I assume Red Cross in Northern California, or California, which those funds are specifically meant for the Northern California funds to help, you know, everything that's going on there. I'm going to donate a little bit myself, a very little bit because I'm broke. And if you want to too, you can. If you don't, that's okay too. But thank you for watching the video. I really appreciate it as always. Anytime anybody watches any of these videos, it really does mean a lot to me. So thank you very much for checking them out. If you want to see more, you know, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. It always makes me feel like I accomplished something. But otherwise, I guess I'll see you in the next one. Bye.